and just well, and basic things on the website to keep it all pretty clean. But so I guess now with what we've got here, to kind of change things up a little bit, we'll be a little less formal, if you will, a little more informal. So I'll get really specific with questions you guys have. So if you guys come up with questions, ask. We'll stop what we're doing. We'll make sure we get things explained. But what we're doing now, my father's got a patented machine and a patented process, and we crush grains instead of grind them. Now, crushing and grinding are two entirely different processes. Basically, when you crush grains, you don't destroy the cell on the inside of the kernel. If you don't destroy that cell, nothing goes rancid. Now, this is what I'm talking about here. This is God's law, and there's a difference between God's law and science. God's law has never changed. Science is always changing, up and down. They're always finding out new things, correcting mistakes they've made in the past. But science is always changing. But when you get into God's law and the way that He created things, that never changes. So those cells on the inside of the kernel, they contain the germ, they contain the nutrition, the proteins, the enzymes, the bacteria. Those are all contained inside of those cells. So as long as we keep those cells intact, they all stay. The grain does not have a shelf life. It does not oxidize. As soon as you open it, it oxidizes. So as long as you keep that cell intact, you've got all the nutrition in that grain that God put into it. It stays there. It doesn't go anywhere. And you can even take our wheat ones and sprout them because it still has the live germ. So now what you've got with crushing, you've got a live food. And people with sauerkraut, with kombucha, with kefir, all sourdough, all of these different types of foods that people try to have live enzyme, live bacteria in it because it's good for our gut. Well, we've got that in that germ yet. It is still there. And when you break down the gut flora, and when you break down the enzymes and bacteria and the germ and what's in that wheat, I would say that there's a very good argument that the wheat germ, that the wheat is the best probiotic for your gut. It is the best food out there to help your gut, to get things rolling and to be active and to digest. And then I go back in reference to the Bible. That very well could be why wheat is referred to as the staff of life. So that's one of the big things that I found with wheat, if you can keep it alive. Now, wheat that we've got to crushed is way different than flour. The Ohio Department of Agriculture has told us we cannot call it flour. The USDA owns the term flour. Because we don't abide by any of their guidelines, we can't call our product flour. So we've got a different name for it, which is crushed wheat. But, so with flour, and I've got some handouts up here. Here's one. This talks a lot about flour, how it's made, why it's bleached, why they do some of the things they do to it. And another one up here, I've got the 5 most toxic ingredients that are put into flour, if you're going to use the term flour. So there's some stuff there in writing that you guys can read and kind of see. But with the crushing process, that's what you're getting. With the grinding process, you come in and you are destroying the cell. You're trying to make it as fine as you can. In the flour milling industry, they have to get 85% of that wheat berry has got to be put into flour for them to be able to make money on it. So that's where they got to get it fine enough. They've got to get it small enough because it also has to pass through a 212 micron screen. But if it's not that fine, then you can't call it flour. So what they're doing is they're tearing, they're cutting, whatever they've got to do to get that wheat fine enough to fit through that screen so that it fits the requirements of the USDA. Now with us, when we try to crush and we try to crush too small, what we do is we break the hull down and you get lots of brown pieces in your flour. And wheat number one, I ain't gonna say flour, wheat number one. So you get a lot of brown pieces in there. And so with this up here, they will bleach it. But they talk about bleaching it to turn it all white, which is what everybody wants to see. Well, we don't bleach, so we can't get it that fine because we can't put that brown in there. We have before, and we hear back a lot from people wanting to know what all this brown is. Well, it's the real color of the white stuff that you're getting when you buy flour. So it's the same product. We just don't bleach it to make it white. So with the grinding, but that's what they're doing. They're trying to get it that fine, and when they do that, they're destroying all those cells. As they open up, they oxidize. When they oxidize, there's two things that happen. Number one, that nutrition in that wheat berry, inside of that cell of that wheat, will evaporate. And within 72 hours, there is literally no nutrition left in that wheat. Unless you put it in the refrigerator, freezer, you can slow it down. I don't know how much you lose after that happens, but if you don't put it in the refrigerator or freezer, and that's not counting going rancid, that's just how much nutrition is left in it. Almost none. Now, the other side of this that happens after you have a pretty much nutritionless food, you also have a rancidity problem. Now, that stuff's going to go bad. So what do? Preservatives. The preservatives try to preserve it as long as they can, try to stop it from oxidizing. They also use different types of chemicals that will come in and kill. So anything that is alive in that wheat berry, because that wheat berry is alive, but anything that's alive they have to kill so that it doesn't go rancid and make people and or animals sick when they eat it. So now they've got different chemicals, they kill everything, and they will use preservatives to try and slow down anything that they mix. But that's what goes into flour. And that's what they have to do so that they can sell more, get it to people, and extend the shelf life on it. And not make people sick. So that's what happens. And that's not just wheat flour. That is any grains out there. Any grains that they're processing, they go through the same thing. Now maybe it doesn't have to be as fine. You get your flax, you get ground flax. It's not as fine, but you still have all of the same issues with that God, the way that God created it, opening the cell, the oxidation, the losing the nutrition. You still have all of those same issues with all your grains, all the way across the board. So that's what happens when they grind. And so with what we're doing now, no chemicals, no preservatives. We use absolutely no synthetics, which is why it's extremely important that we buy grains that they limit or have no chemicals on them. So this whole issue out here of grains being bad or food being bad, there's two processes or two sides of this. Number one is going to be how they raise it. So it's what the farmer does to it. And the second part of it is what the processors do to it. So when people want to come out and say you have to have einkorn. Einkorn is an ancient grain. It is simple, it is pure, it's the best wheat out there. Now, it may be more simple. It's only supposed to have 13 sets of chromosomes, where this other stuff has 30 and 40 sets of chromosomes. So maybe it is simple. But I have taken einkorn, we've crushed it. We have taken the wheat that we use, we've crushed it, we've sent it to a lab, and they're virtually identical. So the nutritional qualities in it The einkorn will have a little bit better trace minerals, but it doesn't have the dietary fiber and it doesn't have the protein that the wheat that we've got has in it. So when you weigh it all out, and the differences aren't that great. So what we're finding out is that it may not necessarily be the variety of wheat. And we've also found out that, and this has absolutely blew me away, when we first found out that people with gluten issues were eating crushed wheat, that wheat that we got was raised commercially. Had all the sprays on it, all the chemical fertilizers. So it was a commercially raised wheat. That's when we first found out that people were coming back to us and telling us they had gluten issues and they could eat this wheat. So now I go back, how much of this is actually the farmer's fault, which is what is being spread all over the place. So now I'm putting more and more of this blame on the processing. So these are things that, as we get into this, and unless you've got a crusher, you can't find these things out. The only thing we can do is listen to what we're being told. But we are getting some very interesting results from a lot of the people. And the thing that we do also, we don't advertise much. We don't do hardly anything other than, as far as spreading the word, other than coming out here and talking to people. But this is not, for me, this is not advertising, this is not marketing, but this is education. But this is an education so that people can exercise their God-given free will with as much information as what they can get. And there are people that I will talk to about this who won't buy it. And that is perfectly fine. At least they're making an educated, or the best educated decision they can make. And that's the thing that we've got to have, is making sure that people know, people understand. And a lot of this things that we go back to, comes this whole process here. When we talk about the people, we talk about taking a while. This is a 4 generation. We're working on 4 generations right now, working on this whole concept. But this started with my grandfather, who wanted to find a way to make grains more digestible for animals, because he was tired of hauling his cow manure out onto the field and watching corn grow up, because those kernels are undigested. So he came up with that issue, that problem. My father got far enough along, he became a tool and die guy, a machinist, but he came far enough along that he started his own business, and then his free time was working on trying to answer those problems. And he did answer those problems. Now the problem that he had is he couldn't get anybody to buy in, he couldn't get anybody to see what he had, and he didn't fully understand everything he had. And that's where I came into the picture. And I came into the picture, and I had been a head high school basketball coach. And I would say by far, probably the most popular or the most known in our county, in the area counties. And at that time, I thought that I was a pretty good coach. That, I knew what I was doing. Afterwards, I find out that God put me in that situation to create a lot of relationships, so that whenever it come time to get this out, which Dad was struggling to do, I had people that trusted me enough that would come in and try out. And we started off at a farmer's market. And that's where we started getting all of our information. But we had all these people that I had built relationships with throughout the years that came in, wanted to see what we were doing, wanted to find out. And that's where it all started. And after the fact, things are making a lot more sense. But after the fact is a lot of what's happening in this whole process. But these are not things that we have set out to try and do. These are things that we are learning as we go. So, and the difference between crushing and grinding process was a big learning curve for us. The second thing that really was a learning curve, and it was after the fact, was the whole gluten thing that we just started talking about. And now what I firmly believe is that after tens of thousands of people with gluten intolerances, some even have celiac disease, eating our wheat and not having issues. Eating our wheat, some of them have even said they've been cured. That's telling me that something is not quite right with the whole gluten thing. So as we get into the whole gluten issue and find out that, number one, for celiac disease, the test that they use is 40% accurate. So they get it wrong more than they get it right, but it's the best they can do. But it is 40% accurate. And as I get into this, there are a group, there's a family there that they're teachers at Salina that I worked with, and they were all gluten intolerant, but they found they could eat our grains. So they got out of education, became missionaries, went to Europe. They were in Germany, Italy, France. In all three countries, they had no problem eating their flour. So they could eat their flour without an issue. Came back to the United States, couldn't eat our flour. Our commercial flour, they had to come to us and get our crushed grains, and they had no problem eating it. So there is a difference now in in flour in Europe than what there is in the United States. So as we get into this and start looking at the gluten, I went out, Paul Fagoni, and when I got this lady's book, she is a culinary arts expert at the University of Massachusetts. So I got her book, How to Bake, and I'm looking through this book. And gluten, according to her and her book, gluten is not in any grain. Gluten has to be created. So on the inside of these cells, there are proteins. And the two that you have to worry about for gluten is a glutenin and a gliadin. Or some people pronounce it gliadin. But those two proteins, when they are introduced to oxygen, it can be through the air or it can be through water. But when they're introduced to oxygen, they will create those gluten strains. So as I found this out, I go back and I look at the different grains to see how many of these grains contain those two proteins. Wheat is the only grain that does. Now I've been in a grocery store and I've seen oats, gluten-free oats. Well, oats don't contain those two glutens. So oats don't have gluten by design, by creation. So why are we putting it on that package? Maybe to sell? I don't know. But, so as I go and look at this, once again, wheat is the only grain that I see that has those two proteins that can create gluten. And now when I go back and I look at it, why do we need gluten? To get a rise. What other grains do you guys use to get things to rise? Anything else besides wheat? So then it all makes sense. So now I'm looking at that and I'm understanding that. Then I do a little bit of research into this, investigation, and I find out when you're making your dough, you can see your gluten. You can touch your gluten. You can stretch your gluten. You can feel your gluten. So you take a little part of that dough off, just something in your hand, run it under running water, stretch it, let it wash all the starch out. All the starch will go down your drain. But that gluten will not go down the drain. That gluten is like a big rubber balloon. And what happens is when you get a rise in your bread, that gluten is to surround that bread. The yeast on the inside will ferment, form a gas, It'll blow up until that balloon pops. That's when your bread falls. So what you do when you rise it is you try to figure out how much you can rise it before that gluten pops. So you can do different things depending on how strong your gluten is. The stronger your gluten, the more that it'll rise, the bigger loaf you're going to get. So that's what gluten is. But gluten is a God-created product. So now with gluten and gluten being demonized, I really questioned whether or not gluten was a problem because the wheat that we sourced had the highest of those two proteins of any wheat out there. So it is a gluten high wheat. And yet we've got thousands, tens of thousands of people with gluten intolerance who can't eat that wheat. So then I go back and I figure out on this page right here, it's got 5, what I consider to be the 5 worst chemicals put into flour. 3 of these 5 are illegal in Europe. So now we go back to why can people in Europe eat flour and people in the United States cannot. Crushed grains they can eat, but we don't use these chemicals because we don't need to. Europe doesn't use them because they're outlawed because they're too toxic. Maybe those chemicals on there are part of the problem. Maybe it's not gluten intolerance, but maybe chemical intolerance. Azodibicarbonate, potassium bromate, datum. So what we find is whenever we can stay away from that, people aren't having these gluten reactions. So that is the assertion that we will take and we will stand by, is that gluten is not causing problems, but the man-made synthetic chemicals are. And when you get back to creation, you get back to God's laws. God created our bodies. God created the grains. If our bodies recognize the grains and whatever is in there, our bodies do not attack it, do not send white blood cells after it. Our bodies know what to do with it. If you have a man-made synthetic that was not created by God, now our body doesn't recognize it. And according to the way our bodies were designed, created, our bodies then send white blood cells out and attack foreign objects, whatever they don't know, because it may be harmful, poisonous, toxic, whatever. So our bodies are designed to send the white blood cells out. So as soon as that happens, now your immune system is compromised. But that's the way that it works. Nobody's been able to change it. Only one creator. It's still the same. So our bodies now attack these man-made synthetic chemicals, and that's where you've got different issues. And those synthetic chemicals can get caught in your stomach, can get caught in your intestines. They go through your liver, they go through your gallbladder, they go through your body. And when you start to have problems with those, it may be from trying to process those man-made synthetic chemicals. But when it gets stuck, especially on your stomach walls, and all of a sudden now you've got white blood cells and they're trying to surround that and trying to get rid of it, what do you think happens to the walls of your stomach? Now all of a sudden they get agitated, irritated, and you've got problems, you've got issues. In your intestines, the same way. But if you don't put those man-made synthetic, those foreign objects into your body, your white blood cells do not go out and attack them. They just handle them as, because they recognize them. So whenever we look at these man-made synthetic chemicals, we're finding out that is inflammation. But that's what causes inflammation in your joints, in your stomach, everywhere in your body. And inflammation is the beginning of every known disease or health issue out there. Inflammation. So get back to a God-created food, and you can start to eliminate some of that inflammation. But especially with gluten. Especially with gluten. It has been around forever. Hasn't caused us problems for how many years? Thousands of years. Man has been eating bread. Gluten issues, gluten intolerance has never been a thing. But when I trace that down, I go back over, goes back to about World War II. And in World War II, they started really dissecting the wheat, taking a lot of things out, and putting that man-made products back into it so that we could send wheat food overseas to feed our soldiers and feed the people back home. So we tried to spread that out as much as we could. Good, bad, and different. But in 1950, I believe Congress even passed a law forcing these millers to add nutrition back to their back to the flour, because they were pulling the bran, the germ, and all the nutrition out of it. But Congress recognized that and forced them to put nutrition back in. So what type of nutrition did they put back in? Enrichment. Fortified. Never seen a farm created in the lab. But that's what they put back into for the nutrition. So, with that being the case, now we've got more and more man-made synthetics in our food all the time. And when we take a look at the whole nutritional deficiency here in the United States, when we look at people not being nourished enough, that comes back to we've got nutrition on our food labels, but does our body recognize that nutrition, and can our body use that nutrition? So for myself, I've given up trying to read any food labels, because if it's a synthetic nutrition, our body can't use it. Doesn't matter. If anything, it's going to cause inflammation. You give me a God-created nutrition, now I'm all about that. But that's the only stuff that I can count on to nourish my body. So with the enrichment part of flour, that is the one thing that I learned that drove me away from reading nutrition labels now. Because that nutrition is not nutrition. It is usable nutrition, non-usable nutrition. And we've got to get back to the usable nutrition. So at this point, any questions on any of this?
So how can you feel or be sure if you just use any wheat and it was sprayed and all that, how can you say that's right?
Well, I don't say it's right. The wheat that we get, the wheat source, we try to stay away from synthetics. We stay away from chemicals, and they do. I think the guy that we've got right now, he said about 1 out of every 4 years they have to put a fungicide on, because about 1 out of every 4 years it gets wet, and that wheat gets too thick, and then that fungus will grow. So they have to use that. But the other thing that he does, and this is the exact opposite, because I've always thought we had to go heirloom grains, but he's got his own company now, and they hybridize. Now, hybridization is different than genetically modified, but hybridization is a natural process. That is wheat or people or whoever over years adapting to their environments. So they've got to figure out how to continue, and life will, that's what life does. But so that's hybridization that he does. He tries about every 4 years to come up with a new variety, because these wheat varieties are very strong for the first 4, 5, 6 years, where they are very disease resistant. And whenever they hybridize, they're not always successful. He said most of the time they're not. But whenever they hybridize, they'll get a new wheat strand out there every 4 years, so that's what they plant. And as long as they're planting that wheat, they don't have to worry about disease and everything else coming into it. Now, is that better than einkorn? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But I do know when you come to the nutrition, and this nutrition is being tested without any enrichments in it, the nutritional qualities are about the same. Digestibility would be the issue, but I don't think that our grains are hard to digest. I see and hear a lot of people that really experience a lot of nutrition because they can digest the grains and they're getting the nutrition. So I don't have an answer for that. But the chemical fertilizers, the glyphosate that they're spraying on us, all that stuff, as far away from that as what we can stay, we stay. And the variety that we use is not a food grade. We use a seed grade. So we go with the seed grade wheat because it's a much higher quality than food grade. Yeah, and they have to try and keep that germ alive with the seed grade. Because if that seed doesn't grow, they're not going to be a seed dealer very long. And there's walls out too. There are tougher walls on seed wheat than there are on food grade. But the food grade, they don't care if the wheat's alive. They don't care if it's dead. It doesn't make them any difference. So that's why we use the seed wheat, and it is a lot more expensive. Go out and buy seed, and it's that way all the way across the board. So yeah, that's what we do. We try to find the best that we can, and the seed wheat is the only one that would go through a big guy like that because of the quantity that we're using. Right now we run about 100,000 pounds of whole wheat a week is what we're running through right now. But a lot of the other stuff that we get, our corn, our flax, our coffee, we get them from farmers. We get them straight from smaller guys but they can keep up. And then we just make sure that we clean it and make sure that we take care of it right. So that whole end of, and the farmers that we buy it from, we make sure they're doing it right. We make sure that, they're not using the chemicals and toxins and everything else. So, but like I said, there's two parts to this. It's the processing and it's the farming. And they both have to work together. So, any other questions?
I was curious, do you guys sell crushed einkorn or no?
Not yet, but we plan to.
Okay, that's nice.
And now the one thing that we've got too, we've got our old crusher, because as we are crushing, we're also working to develop our crusher. So the crusher's got to get better as we move along, and to test the crusher to see what it does in a production state, we had to run it. We got a lot of extra wheat, so we had to get rid of the wheat. Plus, we also had to educate people. Like I said, this is something totally new. So to do that was to get it out and to get it in people's hands, and then let them talk to each other and let them, figure it out. But so with our crusher now, our Generation 1 production crusher does not crush the einkorn or a soft wheat fine enough to be able to bake with it as a whole wheat. And if we try to sieve it and pull the ones out, we only get about 20% of that goes into the ones. So for the einkorn, for just the ones, for us to sell it and to break even was like $9 a pound is what we would have to sell it for.
Wow.
So what we did is we went back to our machine. We got a second machine now. It is built better, more accurate, and now we have got a whole wheat product that we have been selling. And I was just talking to a guy on the phone that's really taken off up in Wisconsin. People are really loving that whole wheat.
And that's einkorn or no?
That's not einkorn.
Okay.
But we did crush some einkorn. But the thing is we did get a crusher that will crush a hard wheat. So we did run some einkorn. Now it's a soft wheat and it doesn't run near as fine. But I think James, who's hopefully going to be here after a while, I gave him some crushed back, and I would like to hear what they've been able to do. He's got a bakery. I want to hear what they've been able to do in their bakery. So if we can do the einkorn, that would be something else that we would offer as well.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
You have to get some einkorn out there, crushed einkorn. So, but the one thing that I do know is that einkorn does not have near the gluten like the wheat that we're using, so it doesn't rise. So you can't expect it to rise the same.
Right.
The nutritional, it doesn't affect the nutritional quality how it rises, but it just doesn't have those two proteins. It doesn't have a high enough concentration of those two proteins.
So I guess I'm just kind of curious. We just ordered some einkorn to try for our family while we were waiting for this presentation. And is I guess is the ground einkorn then still more nutritionally deficient than the crushed wheat that you sell? Because it's not crushed?
Yes, because as soon as you open that cell, all that nutrition evaporates.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tested it apples to apples. They were both crushed. So it's how much nutrition is in it. When you grind it, now all of a sudden you're going to lose a lot of that.
Okay.
It could be the same einkorn, but as soon as you grind it, you will lose that nutrition. And perfect example of that would be, I don't know, get an apple, cut an apple in half, see where it oxidizes, see where it goes brown first.
Right.
Get a head of cabbage, head of lettuce. But where you cut that stuff and you cut those cells open, that's exactly where it's gonna oxidize first. I mean, all food's that way. So that's across the board with food. They're made up of cells.
Right. I'm sorry. Then I just have another question about the grinding thing. In Bible times, when it says that 2 women will be grinding at the mill, did they grind it finely then in Bible times, or was it more like they crushed it then?
From what I've read, at that time, they did not travel with their grains.
Right.
They baked with it
Right.
and then traveled.
Right.
So that's where I'm guessing that they were destroying those cells, and it was unleavened. They didn't rise. They didn't use yeast.
Right.
So, because it would go rancid, and they had to bake with it, I'm guessing that they did destroy the cells, and
Right.
that's why they traveled with bread. But even the bread, the unleavened bread that they made, they would bake it and bake it and bake it, and you would really have to dry it out.
Right.
That's the same thing that they did, and this I know that they did because of the. Well, when I was a public school teacher, I taught history. One thing I found out about was hardtack. Hardtack is one of the foods that they use whenever they travel across the Great Plains that would have the shelf life to make it all the way across. But when they had that shelf life, it was because they dried it out.
Okay. And then I guess when they did do leavened bread, they did put it on sourdough back then.
Right, no, that was not sourdough, right. So that was the whole process of the einkorn. But so as soon as you grind that and you open that cell, it's going to oxidize, and it goes rancid, and then you got all your problems. Now the other thing too that we've got is when you look at our bodies and how they react and respond to processed grains today, you get a dietary fiber. And this is also on nutrition labels. But when they put these on nutrition labels, nobody's talking about dietary fiber anymore. What they talk about is simply fiber. But there is a difference from dietary fiber and fiber. And right now, but right now, the diet or the fiber and dietary fiber are our health community. They're mixing it all together, and they're making it all mean the same, but it's not the same. So for fiber, probably the best example I got with fiber is cheese. Cheese is supposed to be sticky. It's supposed to stick together, all be one big blob. It isn't supposed to stay apart. So you get the string cheese, or you get the shredded cheese that you can buy. How do they get that to stay apart and not all be sticky in one big clump? They use fiber, wood cellulose, wood chips, sawdust. But they put it in there, and now they tout it as fiber, because when they do their test, it shows up as fiber. Does it do your body any good? No. But they put it on that label so that they can elevate their numbers. But it doesn't do us any good. What is fiber supposed to do for our body? Or more specifically, fiber really has limited uses for our body. Dietary fiber is extremely important for our body. So what is dietary fiber? Or what's the purpose of dietary fiber? Anybody know?
Removing waste from the body, bulkage and so forth.
Yes. Dietary fiber helps remove waste from the body, and as it does that, it also cleans the sides of our intestines. So in our intestines, they've got little fingers that stick down, like, I think they're called villi. And they stick down, and their job is to absorb nutrition from the food that's passing through. If your system is dirty and you don't get enough dietary fiber, because dietary fiber is what cleans our system. And if you go to the CDC website, whatever credit you give the CDC, they claim that 85% of Americans don't get enough dietary fiber. So if you're dirty now, if you're plugged up, and your villi can't reach down and absorb nutrition, it does not matter at all what you're eating, because your body can't efficiently reach down and absorb that nutrition. So you can buy the best food in the world. You can eat the best food in the world. If your body's not operating, it cannot absorb that nutrition. So dietary fiber, extremely important in our diet. Where is your best source of dietary fiber? Wheat. Now, dietary fiber, best source is wheat. Once again, does this go back to why wheat in the Bible is considered to be the staff of life? Not only does the nutritional makeup of it coincide with our gut flora, it also now cleans our intestines so that our body is much more efficient at absorbing nutrition. And when you look at dietary fiber, when you get a milled or a processed or a ground flour with wheat in it, they are breaking that dietary fiber down with a chemical process so that they can pull as much of the starch out. Because remember, in the wheat industry, you got to get 85% of that wheat berry that's got to get into flour for them to be efficient. So they've got to break that down, and they use chemicals to break it down. So now you've got a dietary fiber that is being put on the market today that is not as powerful, not as strong as it should be, as it was created to be, because of our chemical processes to break it down. When you talk about crushed grains, since we don't use any chemicals, we're not breaking it down, we're not softening it up. And you know, I had a recollection of that this morning when I got a brand new toothbrush, because I come from Ohio. So I'm up here, I spent the night, and I got this morning, I got a brand new toothbrush. And the toothbrush I got at home is a lot softer, a lot more broken in. And so when you talk about that, that is one of the things that makes sense to me, is crushed grains are like a brand new toothbrush, and processed grains are like an old toothbrush that you're getting ready to throw away, because it's already been broken down, it's already been processed, made as soft as it can be. So, once again, crushed grains because of the lack of chemicals, of synthetics in it, is going to be, or give you a better dietary fiber. And that's a concept that you get outside of this room or outside of what we're doing, nobody has even thought about. But, so now what we call those are complex dietary fiber versus a simple dietary fiber. So now let's go back on the other side of that. When you talk about complex versus simple, now you also got carbohydrates. So when you talk about simple or refined, they'll use both of those terms. But simple refined carbohydrates are carbohydrates that have been broken down with chemicals through the system, the way that they mill today, the way that they process today, grind. And crushed grains, because we don't go through that process, have a complex carbohydrate. And when you talk about carbohydrates, what person, what health issue deals most with carbohydrates?
Diabetes.
Yeah, people with diabetes. So diabetes really have to watch carbohydrates. Now, the thing that we found out, and this is something, once again, I told you, we keep finding this stuff out after the fact. But all of a sudden, I'm finding out now that diabetes is not an issue when you're eating crushed grains. Because you've got complex carbohydrates. And you've got the complex dietary fiber. So that slows down the entrance of blood, or of sugar into the blood. Hey, if you two guys want to fight over, I'll hold him. And then you guys don't have to worry about it. But the complex carbohydrates now are good for a diabetic. And we've had diabetics that have those pumps on their sides and they can get their numbers right away. And they will eat each slice of bread made with crushed grains, doesn't move. Doesn't move at all. So now, when we talk about diabetes, diabetes is, from what I'm seeing, a health issue created by man because of the refining of everything. If we can go back, eat the same foods, but not refined, and that's what we do. We've got lots and lots, thousands of diabetics who are now eating crushed grains and don't have to worry about their numbers. We actually have people who say that they're no longer diabetic. So those are some of the results that we're getting back on the complex versus the simple carbohydrates. And when you get into the simple, they're already broken down, your body doesn't have to break them down, so when it enters your body, it goes straight to the bloodstream. It's like a dump truck dumping all this carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, into your bloodstream at once. When you get the complex, and that's a sprint, when they dump it all in at once. So all of a sudden now your sugars go like this, it's going to use it all like that, and all of a sudden, boom, you're going to drop. When you get a complex carbohydrate, your body will break it down. Now you're running a marathon, but it breaks it down all day. But you don't get all those carbohydrates going in your bloodstream at one time. So it's a constant throughout the entire day. No peaks, no valleys. And energy is elongated. So you've got more stable energy for a longer period of time. So when we look at the carbohydrates, absolutely huge. But once again, we go back to a carbohydrate dietary fiber the way that it was created, not after we, meaning man, has tried to make it better for us, make it more usable, where we can sell for a longer period of time, extend the shelf life, and all those different things that we have done. And now we've got a lot of health issues that have come along with it. And economically, sure, it's helped out. Until you look at the money you got to pay now for health care. So then maybe it's not helping us out, economically. But, so with crushed grains now, that is another area that we get into, is the dietary fiber and the complex dietary fiber and the complex carbohydrates. So all of this now is wheat. So as we get into the whole wheat thing and we're finding out what it's doing, and this is what most people buy. Most people are looking for wheat, good healthy wheat. But as we get into this, we now have a byproduct, and the byproduct we call our 2s and 3s, which is a bigger particle size of the wheat, because the wheat we run it through the crusher, comes down through 6 sets of rolls, comes out the bottom into a sieve, and we pull it out according to particle size. Well, what we also found out is particle size also means nutritional values. So now the 1s become what people consider flour. The 2s become more of a meal, but for a long time, until we got our second machine, which does a much better job, we have mixed our 2s and our 1s together to increase the dietary fiber, to increase the nutritional, the trace minerals and nutritional quality of our dough. So we've mixed the 1s and the 2s together. Every now and then you get somebody that'll throw 3s in there, but we've got 3 different wheat products now. But the 3s go in because it really goes through the roof with trace minerals and protein and dietary fiber. But that becomes a very thick piece of bread to eat. And I've even made something like that and put butter on. Butter will not soak into it. Butter runs off the side. So it's that dense. So with our new crusher now, that's not the case. But as we get into this, our 2s and our 3s, we don't use all of our 2s and our 3s for food. So what we had to do was find a market for our 2s and 3s. So we put together feed. I've got 8 kids, I've got 14 grandkids. We raise almost all of our food out there. We've got grapes, we've got apples, pears, you name it. We've got it all on our property. We keep it all clean. So our kids come back and help out and take food from our place because it's the best quality that they know of. And we got a bunch of chickens. I usually keep about 60 chickens on hand. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna try to feed these grains to my chickens. So I take the grains, we take it out to the chickens. It works a little bit, but I'm just feeding them the wheat. I'm thinking, I got to give them the whole feed before we were getting organic feed. So I went out and got some different grains. We use sunflower, flax, corn, or not corn. Yeah, corn, wheat, and buckwheat. Those are the 5 grains that we use. And now we feed that to the chickens, and they do great on it. And we had a lady that sells our products, but she was on a vegan diet. She wasn't 100 pounds. She was pregnant. I believe it was her 6th child. And so she was on that vegan diet and struggling with protein. So she was going to eat eggs to get her protein. So when she got these eggs from a farmer down the road who had free-range chickens but fed conventional eggs, she breastfed that baby and that baby would break out. Well, she was watching her diet close enough and she tried some different things, found out pretty quick it was the eggs.
Wow, is it the feed?
The feed. So then she stopped getting those eggs, went uptown to Kroger's and got organic eggs. Baby still broke out. At that time I was still teaching. I worked with her son-in-law. So he took a dozen eggs, brought them to her, and the baby had no problem breastfeeding because we didn't use any chemicals. So I did a presentation at their place, and her husband came up and introduced me, and he said it best. He said, you got chemicals that go through a process that go into the grains that are digested by the chicken, go into the egg, digested by the mother, through the mother, into the milk, into the baby, and it's still around. It's still causing problems.
It must affect your meat too, if you eat the chicken.
Yes. So now we've got that whole thing, that whole idea, that whole concept now backing up to staying away from synthetics. But with the feeds, and at this time I hadn't thought about this all, but the feeds are no different than the foods. Once you open up that cell, it's going to go rancid. So I dive into the feed a little bit. They're putting antibiotics into the feed. They already know the animals are going to get sick. So if you use any kind of a supplement that you put in with your grains to make feed,
It's getting into
yeah, the antibiotics are in that supplement. So, and the preservatives. So they're throwing all that stuff into the feed as well. So now we've got chicken feed, eggs, reinforcing what we've been thinking all along. So then we get into the whole pork thing. I raise my own pigs. I got a couple of families uptown that they're allergic to pork. They can't eat pork. And they love bacon, but they can't eat bacon. Guess what? They're eating bacon now. They come out and get bacon from us. I won't give them much because I ain't got a lot extra, but I'll let them get a taste of it, you know?
What is extra bacon?
That's really not a thing, is it? So now we got the whole thing with meat. And if you're feeding your pigs, then you got no synthetics in that meat, and now these people are able to eat meat. We have a lady in Sturgis, Michigan, lactose intolerant, drinking milk from a cow fed crushed grains. So I haven't been down those other two paths yet far enough to have a lot of different people, a lot of different testimonies with those, but everything that I'm finding comes back to the whole synthetic thing being a problem for us, which is why it's not God created. Our bodies are God created. Our bodies can't recognize it, and it's causing our body to want to fight it. But it activates our immune system right away. So I've got all of those things rolling, and I'm at another place, and we have a gentleman who is concerned because he can't drink coffee. So he said, "Can you crush coffee that we can drink?" Let's find out. So we crush coffee beans. And what we have found out, coffee beans, okay?
How's it going? How's my ladies doing?
But coffee beans are very highly chemicalized, preserved, if you will. So whenever we started crushing coffee beans, we found out that he could drink it. And we started going down that path with coffee, and we're finding out the same thing with coffee. Coffee is not supposed to cause headaches, and people blame it on caffeine. But it doesn't cause headaches, it doesn't cause the shakes, it doesn't cause digestive problems. It doesn't give it coffee does not have an acidic taste.
So it's not supposed to be bitter?
No.
Oh.
That all happens because of the synthetics. So now, all of a sudden we get into the whole synthetic side of things with coffee, and we're finding out the same things. So we've got a pretty wide spectrum of different foods, grains, beans, that we find out that if we can crush, and we can, and not put synthetics into it, we don't have health issues. So staying away from those synthetics are huge. Yes?
How is that compared to, they used to use stone to crush grains back then. Is yours similar to the crushing of the stone?
No. And whenever they used the stones, did that grain have a shelf life?
I don't know. I just know that they used to use it back then.
Yeah.
Stone crushing.
Maybe now is the time to
Oh,
give it
there.
Is it the crushed coffee?
Yes.
I just made this one pot. I should have made another one right away, but it's a try.
But I know that stuff with the stone
Let's get it.
and the mortar and pestle, those grains went rancid. So you had, like I said, a couple days. And most of the time they've only crushed, or I should say crushed, they would only process the grains in the morning that they're gonna use that day.
Yeah, it's the same day.
Yeah.
Not for us, thank you.
No, thank you.
No,
for
no,
doing
thank
that.
you.
I don't
Gonna
need
make
caffeine.
No, thank you.
I'll do it this once.
Well, and I've got a feeling it might not be the caffeine.
I don't do caffeine, no.
But I know
Caffeine is a drug, I'm sorry to
Oh.
say, yeah.
but caffeine does keep you awake.
I can
There's a lot of
naturally
things that keep you awake. Torture will keep you awake too.
Naturally.
Yeah.
People wake, we get enough sleep. It's a sleep.
Chicory, yeah, naturally.
Caffeine is a drug, so that drug creates a chemical reaction in your
Right.
brain. Fishing can create that same chemical reaction in your brain.
Yeah.
So you might fall
A
asleep
little
fishing.
different.
But so that with the coffee now, we found the same thing. But so all the way down the line, it all just seems to stay away from the synthetics, and that's the first thing. But the other thing now, the nutrition that you're getting is not a man-made nutrition, but it's a God-created nutrition. And between the two of those, that's the key for crushed grains. And then the other thing to add to that, we have found out that we go to feed animals. And so now we've got all these different meats and eggs.
Be careful, sweetie, it's hot. It's spilling. Be careful.
But so now you get those animals, and you feed those animals the crushed grains. And we took that manure and put it on our garden. Now before this, we had problems with worms. We had problems with a lot of things in our garden. I mean, wasn't real excited about it. But whenever we started feeding our garden manure from the animals with crushed grains, all of a sudden we got worms. All of a sudden we got bugs. I mean, you could see that soil is alive. And what's that called where you get those webs over the top of it? It's slipping my mind right now.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But that's a sign of a good, healthy soil. And
Is that
so,
a web?
yeah, there's like almost like a spider web on top.
Well,
And-
it goes throughout the whole soil. That's actually the structure that keeps the soil together.
But so as I'm seeing this more and more, I'm trying to figure out why all of a sudden we're getting it. And the whole thing that I still come back to, manure from animals that have been fed synthetics, we've already seen with the egg, passes through and it goes into that manure. So now you're feeding your soil.
The microbes, yes.
So now all of a sudden now you're killing them. That's what that stuff is in there. That's what the chemicals are designed to do, is to kill.
Right, right.
So now you're killing your soil. You're killing your microbes. You're killing all the live qualities of your soil.
And you're losing all your nutrients.
Yes.
No, especially I remember reading an article that is Puget Sound, that they could test all the chemical that people are taking in the water, and the fish is eating that water, drinking from that water. So all the chemicals that's running off into the water,
Yes.
that from the
And-
animals and so forth.
And if you're feeding that soil the crushed grains and you're getting that runoff, what chemicals are going into your creek now? You're not putting any chemicals for the runoff. You don't have any chemicals now that are being filtered down through your soil down into your well water. So to be able to stay away from those synthetics, I mean, I just see that as a circle of life, and we can get back and you can get to a situation again where we can have a chemical-free environment. So these synthetics now that we're using out here are toxic, and to get rid of that toxicity, especially in our bodies, would be absolutely huge.
Yes.
And once again, we've got people with MS that were in wheelchairs that are up walking now. We've got people with gluten issues that are claiming they don't have those problems anymore. But I've heard people who have figured out they didn't have those problems go back and start eating,
Then it comes
and
down.
it comes back. So we got to stay away from them. You don't get healed from chemicals. but we've got people with diabetes. I mean, different types of arthritis. I mean, alopecia. I mean, but it's, yeah, and it's nutrition. So you stay away from the chemicals, and you get a nutrition that your body recognizes, and your body will heal itself. Yep.
The wheat that you have, how is it compared to the wheat that they're having now? Because we're talking a lot of time, the structure of the wheat has been changed. You know, how can you touch on that a little bit?
The wheat that we've got now is a modern, very modern wheat. Now it's been hybridized, not genetically modified. GMO wheat, that's a big misconception. There is no GMO wheat that's legal in the United States. And you know how I found this out though? I got a hold of 4 or 5 different seed dealers. Or I shouldn't say, I didn't get a hold of seed dealers, I got a hold of farmers. And I said, go out and talk to these seed dealers and buy me some genetically modified wheat. They couldn't find it. So they couldn't get genetically modified seed wheat. So now that tells me that person that told me that GMO wheat is illegal, that's probably true.
So you saying that there is none on the market?
No, because not everybody does what's right. But by far, the wheat that is out on the market today is not genetically modified. Now, when you're talking about the wheat and how it's changed, the wheat, it has been changed through hybridization. Hybridization is a natural process that takes place over periods of time where life will continue to grow. They will find a way to adapt to their environment. And that's what hybridization is. Now, when we get some of this wheat, like with our guy up in North Dakota who's doing this, he hybridizes specifically what he wants. Hybridization in nature hybridizes according to its environment.
Okay, so it's natural hybridization versus.
Yeah, genetically modified.
Yeah, they change the structure of it,
Right.
genetically modified.
So the GMO wheat, once again, now I'm not saying it's not out there. I know, well, I should say no. I've heard in Washington, the state of Washington, that there have been a couple of fields out there that have been genetically modified, but I know it's illegal. So when they've done it, they've been above the law. They've done it without the law knowing it, whatever.
So people are more reacting to the chemicals that they are using instead of the makeup of the wheat.
Yeah. Well, and early on, we talked about the first time we found out that people with gluten issues could eat our wheat. It was a conventionally raised wheat. It had all the sprays on it. It had all of the chemical fertilizers in it. And they were still able, even though they had gluten intolerance, were still able to eat those crushed grains. So the problem with their food is a twofold problem. One part is the farmers and how they raise it. One part is how it's processed. But with this whole gluten issue, from what I've seen, it is not near as much what the farmer's doing. It is a lot of how they're processing it. But now, if you get back to algebra, if you have to solve an equation with one variable, that's not too bad. Now solving an equation with 2 variables. Now it gets a lot tougher to figure that out. But everything that the media right now and all the information that I am seeing goes back to the farmer. And we've got to have the farmer do a better job. We've got to have the farmer do this. We've got to have the farmer do that. What we're finding out, what we're seeing, we have got to fix our processing. Now, the farmer does need to do a good job. The farmer needs to take care of things. But at this point, whatever the farmer does, these guys kill it. They put a synthetic nutrition into it, and they put it to the levels that they want it. So they have taken the farmer out of it. The only thing the farmers do is giving them mass. He's not giving them nutrition. He's not giving them quality because they kill it. So my whole thing comes back to, we keep the farmer front and center. Whatever the farmer puts into it is the nutrition that we're getting. Currently, these guys take care of it. The nutrition is created in the lab. Enrichment has never been on a farm. Enrichment has only been in the lab.
Because you have to keep the shelf life. When they have messed it up, then you have to keep it for a time. So,
Right. Yeah. So the whole processing into things is the thing that what we're pointing the finger at. We've got to fix our processing. We've got to get rid of the synthetics. We've got to get a lot of the stuff out. And this paper here, by the way, you're welcome to all these handouts. But this paper here has got five most toxic chemicals added to flour. And 3 of these are illegal in Europe. I've worked with a couple that were gluten intolerant. They would get our grains, had no problem eating them. They became missionaries, went to Europe. They had no problem eating flour in Europe. Now, once you grind that flour in Europe, you got 3 days. It'll go rancid.
Because they're not putting all them
yeah,
preservatives in it.
yeah. Because I have met people from Europe who said they don't react to wheat over there, they do here.
Yes.
Is that because they eat it fresh every day?
The process and the stuff that they put in it here
Right here.
is there. They grind every 3 days. He said.
If you don't,
Right, so the flour they're eating must be relatively fresh though, like they don't just have
Well,
a bag of flour last for months.
Yeah, theirs is, theirs within 3 days. Theirs will go rancid.
wow.
So when you go back and you look at it, once again, it's a 2-step process. And
First one.
whenever we go back and we talk about the soil and all these chemical fertilizers that you're using in the soil, you're doing the same thing to those plants that you're doing to us.
that's true.
So if you can find a way to fertilize, use cover crops even. Not even crushed grain.
That's what I was
But
saying.
use
Cover
cover
crops
crops.
is the best way. Not even manure. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cover crops.
Well, no, you're right. Because guess what? Where are you going to get your best dirt out around here?
But
Where do you get your most nutritious dirt?
What do you mean? In
With
farms?
the most nutrients? In the woods. I mean, if people really want something to grow, they go to the woods. You don't have manure out there that's 6 inches thick across that, working it into the ground.
that's it.
What do you have? Trees.
Yeah.
And it
Weeds.
feeds
It
itself.
feeds
Right.
itself.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And that's by far the best way to do it.
Back to that GMO issue, the reason a lot of people think wheat is genetically modified is because they do spray Roundup on wheat, but they spray it on it to kill it so the combines can combine it better. So then people just naturally think, well, if they put Roundup on it, it's GMO wheat. Well, that's not why they're putting it on. They're actually putting it on to kill it.
And so it's all dried by the time they combine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any questions? Anything else I can help you?
I have one.
Yes.
The girls were saying they would like to use it, my girls here, they're married, but it's so expensive. And I said, well, maybe if you use it, you're getting your nutrients, how many less pills will we need to take then?
Exactly.
And,
There goes your business.
No, I'm selling flour.
Yeah, there you go.
And not everybody's gonna buy the flour.
Yeah.
there was a wise man that one time said that one of the things he's seen his entire life is that man spends all of their health creating wealth.
And all the rest of their life maintaining their health.
And then they spend their wealth to regain their health, only to find out in the end. So what
not
is,
worth it.
yeah, but what is, and even if you're 70, 75, 80 years old, and you're able to get up and move and be self-independent and do things yourself, what's the value of that?
Jasmine, how old are you?
I'm
81.
81.
God.
Well, you don't look 81, I'll tell you that.
There goes that you put into your health from
Yeah.
before.
But that's the whole thing that everything comes back to is a value, not price. And when people understand the difference from value and price, that becomes a major step, not just in this, but in their life. The difference from value and health. And here's the other thing too that I would tell them in our defense. All other food that I'm aware of, unless it is a natural, raised in your garden, food that is sold out there, gets supplemented by the government. We get 0 subsidies.
That's it.
They're not
That's
going
it.
to because they like the people sick.
James had to come.
Yes, they like
So-
the people sick.
But, so now for us, we don't get any help with it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's
They're
what
taking from their money, so they would not
Yeah.
subsidize
Yeah.
it.
Right?
that's what discouraged a lot of organic farmers because you don't get paid back.
Right, yeah. And
There is no subsidies for organic farmers.
No.
and
There might be a little bit now, but it's not very much.
A lot of
but
them
do you
have
know why?
quotas.
But do you know why they're starting to have some now?
Because the big farmers are taking hold of organic. The government now owns the word organic.
Because the government owns the word organic now.
Oh,
So
really?
with us, that's why we don't do organic. I refuse to use that term organic because I've seen the quality of organic erode
It
throughout the
changed.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I
Because
said
the
you don't
government
pay
owns
for
it
it.
now.
Yeah.
And so
So even things that are labeled organic aren't
It's
necessarily
not.
they're
superior.
not organic. You
They
They
cannot.
should just say organic TM,
What's TN?
like trademark, organic
Well,
trademark.
the government owns the word organic. You
Yeah.
can't do any. You can't use the word organic on your produce unless the government has given you permission
Then
to do
GM government mark, I guess.
So as you look at that though,
Yeah.
the whole organic thing, like for us, if we don't know the farmer, we will buy organic. But as soon as we get it, we drop the label. I don't want to. I'm not gonna be overseen by them. I'm not gonna let them come in and tell us what to do and how to do it. I'll tell you, the stuff we've got is better than organic.
Yeah.
And you cannot have an organic flour. And they sell organic flour out there.
Yes, that's because I've seen, yes.
But those cells are open. So once you open those cells, how do you stop them from going rancid? So you cannot have an organic flour.
without preservatives in it.
Well, then it's not organic.
Yeah, I know, but they call
Unless
it
the
organic.
government, unless the government allows it to, yeah, right.
I was just curious if it's the chemicals that they add into the wheat that's causing issues, then shouldn't the chemicals being sprayed on the wheat also be causing issues? Because you're still ingesting those chemicals, even if it's a crushed wheat.
What? I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. But for us, I don't know how much because I'm not into the farming end of things enough to know.
Right.
I am into the processing end of things, so I understand what's going on over here.
Right.
How much this is a problem, I don't know. Yes.
So you're saying that it's mostly looking at the people who are using the flour and seeing their reaction, that they are not reacting. It's not something that you can measure because everything now is being measured in the lab. You know what I'm saying? If we don't have studies to say, you know what I mean, this works, then it doesn't work. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Everything now is where we don't have any studies to confirm. Yeah. But you are looking at the people who are using wheat and see how they are reacting, how people allergies, they don't have that allergy to the wheat anymore, and to the gluten, because a lot of people are saying gluten this and gluten that, but people are not reacting. So, but you can't put a measure on that. That's the thing. You can't put a measure.
You're exactly right, and that's where early on we tried to go to universities. We tried to get numbers and data, statistics, and what have you. And I've got into this far enough that because they don't differentiate between fiber and dietary fiber, those numbers don't matter, even if those numbers are true. Get into carbohydrates, same thing. Get into nutrition, protein. if it's a man-made protein, our bodies can't use it. It doesn't matter if it's on the label. So the whole system that we've got of labeling and testing right now is all flawed. Because like you said, you can't measure it, because if you can't use it, why is it on there? So
You could do a study and come up with numbers for it, but how much is that study going to cost? And studies could be done, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
right. Yes.
And are they true? Because they can manipulate any number they want.
That's manipulating.
They can, the scientists can come back and say, this is what we found. Well, you don't know if they're correct or not.
And that's where, even though with the whole COVID thing, you go back and you can look at that COVID, and they wanted us to wear masks. And talked about how important it was for us to wear those N95 masks. Well, if you go back pre-COVID and look at OSHA, OSHA had requirements on there that you couldn't wear a mask for any more than 2 straight hours.
Exactly,
It was hurting your health.
because of it bringing back the carbon dioxide into your body.
Yeah. So which test now are you going to believe? The OSHA or the one other?
It's the exact same way with our climate change. They're saying the world is getting warmer and warmer. So there's a certain number of thermometers or whatever that they have distributed throughout the world that they actually go by. And a guy was telling me that he found the study that they did, and they occasionally, if one looks like it's extra cold, they don't use that number because that could be right.
Wow.
So what's that going to
Does that
do?
make sense? That doesn't make sense.
It's gonna make the average become warmer.
They throw out a number because it's going to manipulate what they want to
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're
You should
manipulating.
be able to tell if the thermometer's broken by measuring a healthy person, but then if you don't do that and you're just like, oh, yeah, I can throw in some variables.
Yeah, it's just that doesn't look right, so they cast it out.
That's crazy.
Anyway,
As
a whole lot of manipulation has been going along for a long time. And we know there are certain people who want to be in charge, want to take over. So what they do, they wouldn't manipulate people. They come out and say, I'm manipulating you. So they go behind and do all these things. And if you're foolish enough to believe a lot of these things, I mean, the
Scientists
world-
said you're supposed to believe it. So
Yes.
But here's part of the problem. I found about that whole issue. I was a public school teacher for 28 years. Now, even though I was a public school teacher, I homeschooled my own.
Good for you.
But I found out a little bit late in life. But I also found out that a lot of the history that we're being taught.
It's wrong.
It's just wrong.
So now when these people believe what the professionals are telling them, they've been malinformed. A lot of these professionals have been malinformed because this stuff has been here for a lot of years.
It's just like in the medical profession. I worked in the medical profession for years, and I realized that they were killing me. As a nurse, to be giving out all these medication, I think it's work. It does not. People are dying from these medications. Well, who is to say? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
And you tell them change your diet or eat something different. They don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So
It's harder.
it's like everything else. The educational system, you have worked with it. The medical system has all been messed up. And people are believing in them. That does not make sense.
Yeah.
Well, they own them too because people just want to pop a pill and eat their all American diet.
That's it. Just pop
And that's
a pill.
exactly what they
All
say.
right.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Just pop a pill.
Yep.
But that whole thing comes back to, my father went through a whole thing with cancer. And I've got 11 siblings. And we were pretty much split right down the middle. But he did not want to do the chemo, the radiation, and all that stuff. He wanted to go holistic.
Yep.
So with us, whenever we were dealing with this, the whole issue was, what is holistic? But I've got so many of my siblings, 6 of them, that buy into the modern holistic, what people call holistic. And I am over here saying, no, you don't understand. You're buying what you consider organic lettuce
Right.
is being shipped in right now
Exactly.
from Mexico.
And they say organic.
Country. Yes.
Right.
So
Everybody, and they
But
put so much
that's-
money into it. It doesn't make sense. I buy regular. I don't buy organic no more because I think in the beginning when they started to do it, you saw that the difference. But as the years went by, the food quality of what they called organic was horrible. So why am I gonna pay extra money for that versus buying the regular?
I actually find organic berries are more sour than non-organic berries.
Yes,
Something's
yes.
wrong.
Yeah.
They go bad
They
fast.
don't even taste good.
Yeah, organic tastes horrible. In fact, there's a test done that they measure the organic plus the conventional. And they found the conventional were much healthier than the organic that you're paying for. Yeah, the nutrients, yes. I'm telling you, it's horrible.
And I'd like to seek your opinion on this. I have a friend on Facebook who, she mentioned something that made me think, because it's something that I guess, like what they're mentioning with the organic versus non-organic that I hadn't thought of. Is it better nutrient-wise to buy local non-organic produce than organic produce at a store?
that's,
Local produce.
but here's the difference. The difference is what you get in the store.
Right.
The food system has had a chance to get their hands on.
Yeah. Whereas you're getting
The
from your
stuff
local
you're getting
farmers.
From your local farmer. they've not.
Amen.
It's much better.
Yeah, even if it's not organic.
Even the traveling, it passed through how much different people before it reaches
Right.
you.
And she said too that organic stuff that's shipped in is still heavily sprayed and stuff too.
You don't know how long they'll hold those in the warehouse before you actually get it. You
Right.
see, and as you pick those fruits or vegetables off the vine,
Right. They have to keep
the
it from
value
spoiling.
is depleting,
Yeah.
right? Depreciating.
Yeah.
And
So they say to eat like frozen vegetables and fruits and stuff like that haven't broken down instead of having
Because
fresh.
they're immediately frozen after picking.
Yeah.
they say no better off.
One thing that I would like to say,
Then.
one thing I would like to say about the organic stuff is, I realized a few years ago that like a conventional apple will give me a dull headache, and I threw the rest out. That I was finishing that one time, I was like, I'm getting a dull headache. Why do I get a dull headache every time I eat an apple? So I threw it out the window as I was driving. And I started eating organic apples. And as I've been eating organic apples, I've never had that headache again. So I'm not sure
But you
what all
don't.
that's about.
Except
But
you don't get
It depends
headaches
on the
from
company.
the apples that come in at the Amish farms in apple
yeah,
season.
I don't get headaches from those either. It's store bought non-organic apples that I have a problem
Research
with.
it a little bit. Bill Gates came up with a new system of coating vegetables to preserve.
I would have thought it would have been Steve Jobs because it's Apple.
But they are coating vegetables now. They have a name for it. And a lot of vegetables and produce that you buy in the store is coated. And that coating is the makeup of that coating is something your body doesn't understand and know what to do.
Yeah, I never washed apples back then either. So I mean, I don't wash the ones that we're getting from Amish stores. I haven't washed the organic ones, but I never even knew about washing. I would rinse them briefly when I was buying a conventional non-organic.
Pick an apple
It's made just
tree
the crushed.
that does not have any
made
chemicals
of
on it. There's a film around that apple that is very beneficial for your health wise.
This is made with the crushed wheat.
So you don't want to wash them from a tree like that. Wash them after the food system's got a hold of them.
Right.
But you take an egg. Same thing with that film. Take an egg from the store, try to hatch
Are you
it.
saying that you can't eat eggs or you just don't eat eggs?
I don't eat anything from animals. No milk, no. Plant-based.
It's funny you say that. I was listening to a podcast just recently. And this lady was saying that your body can actually become
Lethargic,
to vegetables, but not to meat.
allergic, or lethargic. Lethargic doesn't. Lethargic. Lethargic is like lacking of
Pick up the
energy.
nutrients.
From
It
the
can't pull
veggies?
the nutrients from the vegetables.
It can or cannot.
It cannot.
But how the
We
Lord
co-
made it. The Lord
Okay, so
made our bodies.
She was talking about specific sickness and diseases that come because of everything else. That they have found that after they have come to that, they can get them over that by giving them an all animal diet
oh no.
and taking all vegetables out of it.
So I want to speak on the all animal diet. So when we were created from the beginning of this world, God never intended to eat meat. People ate nuts, grains, fruits, vegetables, and so forth. They didn't eat meat until there was a flood on the earth. And when the flood on earth, there was no more vegetables and so forth. So that's when people started to eat meat. So me, I try to live my life as God intended from the life. So that's,
But people now are saying you shouldn't be eating as many vegetables, as many nuts and
Although
either
God
because
so
they're
ancient meat, though,
fighting
you know,
acid
like,
in them.
I tell you what,
the
I tell
Jews
you
ate
what.
meat, Christ himself ate
yeah,
meat.
they ate it, but I
Yeah.
follow the natural
Probably,
intended.
probably part of the reason why we're even told to eat meat is because of the environmental effects that the flood had. The probably depletion
That's
in
why,
what
because
vegetables
of
had
the
available.
Yeah, I always heard that there were things before the flood that were destroyed that we don't have now.
Right. So that's why I don't eat.
Don't get me started on that.
We're here to hear about this so we know what to target.
Yes.
I did have one more question in regards to, you mentioned it has helped, the weed has helped people with MS.
Yes.
My mother has MS and my brother as well.
And
Have you
fibromyalgia.
ever had any testimonies of it helping
Right here.
people with fibromyalgia?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Not yet.
I'm not.
We'll let you know.
So what is that? Or how does that work?
Huh?
How does that actually work on
It's-
the body? What is it?
It's kind of like MS. It's autoimmune,
Musculoskeletal disease.
autoimmune musculoskeletal nervous. It's all kind of just.
So
It's very similar to MS.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Do you know why? Which I told you, I think. I was listening to this podcast from the same lady that, and this talked about what gluten does to the body and MS. She said the scientists have studied it enough now that they know that gluten causes MS and dementia.
Interesting. My mother has celiac as well, besides MS, so that's interesting.
It's autoimmune.
But
It does
That-
something to the nerves. It does something to your
It plays with
nervous
the
system.
autoimmune system. It works with the autoimmune system.
But that whole thing comes back to when she's doing studies, or anybody else out there that's doing studies. They're not doing studies on this. They're not doing studies on a God-created grain. They're doing studies on a processed grain.
Well, that's because when they're doing the study, they're eating a donut and a pastry and
Oh, I'm sure. But so these studies that you get out there, and other people that are talking about these things, we who are looking at crushed grains have to realize when they're talking wheat or corn or coffee or anything else that they want to talk, it's not the same as what we've got here because that stuff has already got these synthetics on it. So this is a whole different ball game, and that's what's made it tough with this because we don't have all those studies done. But I'm with you. I don't know that you can do all those studies. I
But
don't
what
know that-
happened to the gluten? Or why does it rise and still not have that gluten effect?
Because it's not gluten. It's the potassium bromide.
Oh, you're saying
potassium bromide.
it's not the gluten that's creating the.
Yeah, we haven't had problems with gluten for 8,000 years on this planet.
And yeah, people are eating gluten
So,
for years.
but there's
And
a-
all of a sudden.
There's a recent allergic reaction. People wasn't having that before.
Now, this gluten, I think, was recognized like maybe in the early 70s, late 60s, officially. It was about 20 years after they started putting the enrichment into it.
And begin to separate all the things because they have the flour, they make it so you have refined flour and all these different things. So people begin to develop a reaction because the wheat is supposed to be eaten as a whole, as you were saying, and not fragmented. And so that's what is happening. All the machines have been fragmenting the flour and then they leave the pure gluten. And people have been reacting to that.
So on Amazon, Jim's Amazing Bread is listed there, and it says gluten inactive. What does that mean?
I don't know exactly. He's not really been able to figure it out, but he is so tied in with the system that he can't wrap his head around the fact that gluten is not a problem. So he is thinking that, and we don't destroy the cells, so the gluten stays inside of the cells.
Which in reality, gluten isn't naturally in wheat to begin with.
Right, you got to create it. So basically, what he is saying is that with those cells, you retain all that gluten on the inside. But I'm saying, how does your bread rise? How do you create your gluten
Well, that's what I was
strands
wondering.
if it has to be activated? But yeah, so I mean, so that's where he's coming from. Yeah, he's saying that the gluten is retained inside the cells, and I'm saying when you need bread, you open those cells. When you need bread, you're creating gluten. That's why you need it and need it and need it. And the more you need it, the more gluten that you create. So that gluten,
It's a natural mechanism.
a natural process.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I had this one lady that is very interested in the crushed wheat say that someone told her that she's gonna have a mixer to make her bread because you have to mix it so much. And she can't afford that now. She guesses that she's just gonna need it for this time. I said, no.
You don't need
I've
a
been
mixer.
making it. I don't have a mixer. I
Yeah,
don't mix it any more than I do other bread.
yeah,
And it turns out fine.
I've been making it, and I'm 81, so I don't see anyone else can make it, and I don't have that length of time to do it. That's the best flour that I've seen so far. You know, in making my bread. Right, don't you all like my bread?
Well, there's a loaf of bread. This is the bread that we make. I know some people like to compare things.
Yeah.
Can I
But-
see the ingredients?
Yes. There is only 6 ingredients.
I still need to really read the ingredients.
Since you had mentioned about the gluten, not being the issue, but the chemicals, then what would your thoughts be on, like, so for us, my mom has celiac disease, and our
There's 6
naturopath
ingredients.
said that our third child has the celiac gene, and that it can be turned on by eating
And we
gluten.
use
What would your
flax
thoughts be on
as
that,
the
then, if it's a
binder.
genetic,
Yeah, that's what
Trait.
Very good.
if it's only caused by chemicals, why would we be getting this genetically
Is that
then?
one of these
It's
recipes?
Well, it's not like he has an
Yeah,
extra
it's the
strand. It's just that he has maybe that part of the
That's
gene
what I
is just
use.
has a tendency
Makes
to
bread.
go that
They
way.
have
Like
a
it might be a weaker gene.
Yeah, I got one of his.
I bought one.
I go back to once again, it's not the gluten.
That's the one I
What's that, sorry?
So I go back to once again, it's not the gluten now with celiac. I think it's the it's the gliadin, and the gliadin is the protein
supposedly
more so than the gluten, and is causing those issues. But
But our bread.
so my whole thing comes back to I don't know that it can be
scientists
genetic.
feel it's always the same, even though it's the same ingredients.
Yeah.
Say crushed flax.
I don't know if I can-
Now, when you look at making this bread too, you're wanting to see the ingredient list. You can make bread, and we use flax as a binder.
And do you want to,
So,
are we allowed to try the
We
bread?
make
Yes, you
bread,
can have a piece of that.
and I think our bread we've got
Oh, thank you.
5 ingredients in it,
Did you all get?
and everything is grains.
We had some more over in the kitchen.
Oh, I see how it is.
Like we will use honey, but you probably would not want to use honey. So
No,
maple
I'm
syrup,
okay with honey.
honey.
I don't need maple syrup too much now.
So yeah, but one of those two would be the sweetener. But we make a bread, and because we found people that had problems with egg, had problems with butter, had problems with lard.
Yeah, I don't do butter.
So what we did is we found flax. Flax becomes a
It's
binder.
perfect. I use flax when I make my stuff as well.
Yeah.
We make a vegan donut out of this,
With the flour.
and it's not. It's a very chewy, more of a solid. But there's a lady that comes and says she doesn't want anything to do. We use coconut oil to fry it in. She doesn't want any eggs in it. She doesn't. And then
It's like a vegan thing.
yeah,
Does it taste good?
it has a very good flavor, but it's a little bit more solid, a little bit more
How are you
chewy.
gonna go wrong with a donut?
I made donuts once, piece of basically bread.
That's true.
But it has a little bit of nutmeg
Well,
in
that's
it,
all.
so it
Nutmeg
has
is.
that nutmeg flavor.
Now, do you guys have the cookbooks here for sale?
I do have a couple with me.
Okay, because I would definitely be interested in having the cookbooks if we're gonna get the flour.
Unless you can get a digital version.
No, I don't want
Then we'll just
digital.
download it.
No.
You can get a digital version, right? Because most of those recipes are on the
We'll print
website.
it.
No,
Fine. Lord.
Oh, not all of them are. No, I guess there's yeah.
They keep it very simple, which is just the bacon.
Well, there you go.
Do you have?
Tell somebody smart to put that all in digital form and sell a digital form of it.
I would ask them if they have one.
I gotta find some.
Chickens, if we just bought pullets, they're not laying yet, and we would start feeding them this feed now, that it wouldn't hurt that they were fed other feed before, right?
Shouldn't.
They
I would say it'd probably take a little while to transition over and cleanse their bodies.
And that's
Yeah, they're
that's
just, they're
why
not laying yet, they're almost ready.
why you want to get them before they're laying so they can switch over without, because chicken does go
So
through
you
a
have your
period
chicken
of
feed with you too?
stress whenever you
Yeah.
switch feed.
I don't have it. Yeah, I didn't bring any of it.
You have chicken feed with you?
I just have a little bag with me.
Did you bring flour? Did you bring flour?
I did.
I need chicken feed.
Well, maybe I had to start my chicken processing processing up.
James, you're gonna have to get the white beard. You're Santa Claus here.
Bringing all the packages.
Oh, then how come you would need chicken feet?
I sell them.
Well, he's wearing red.
I don't eat it. When people visit me, they're happy to go out there too and get a nice fresh egg.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's like, so the chickens mix my compost. That's what they're for, nothing else.
E-paper. E-paper.
Any other questions? Anything else
That's how it is.
That's how our chicken feed goes.
that you guys have any questions on?
It's not for sale.
Do you guys sell?
That's all I got.
It's just
Oats?
He's like, I got a
Yes.
chicken out in the car that's really
Yep.
hungry.
Do you sell quick oats?
No, not quick oats. See, quick oats, it's all a process. It's a processed food. They use chemicals to break it down. They use a lot of heat. And what they'll do is they'll soften that as much as they can. What we found out is like the oats that we've got, when you go to bake them, you got to be careful because there's a pretty bad smell that comes around with them. But I went to an Amish place that they do organic and they make their own oats, and that smell is down there. But that smell comes out of the oats initially after you heat it that first time. So whenever they make their old oats, the quick oats, they use 240 degree steam. So they're baking it. So you're getting that smell then. So when you take it home and bake with it, you don't get it. Now with our oats, if you go to bake with them, you'll get that smell that
Because
first time.
you don't bake it.
Because we don't bake it. We don't use any heat. Right.
So if I wanted quick oats, I would just pretty much put mine in the food processor and chop it up more finely and then cook it.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work or not. I don't know how much that needs to cook.
Well, I prefer the consistency of like quick oats for oatmeal than rolled oats.
Right.
So that's why I was
Oh,
wondering.
I've got a good idea. You could try putting deodorant on it.
Put what?
Deodorant.
I have one more question. Do you know about Heritage Acres in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania?
Very little.
Now, how does their flour keep? We sell a lot of their heritage flour here. They grow their own wheat, and they have people growing it organically, and they just grind it and bag it and send it up here, and we sell it.
Yeah, I don't know. What type of shelf life does that have?
We
And
have
do you
it around here
refrigerate it?
for a month or 2 months.
Are you
No,
gonna keep cooking oats? Or do you want
I should.
I would think that needs to probably be checked out. I'd be very interested in it.
it's an Amish family. I know they don't add it. I grind their own wheat here, and that keeps too. So,
Beer.
is it when they start taking things out, which most people would do?
Well, when it goes rancid, that will depend on the temperature, the humidity. There's a lot of things that play into that. But as far as the nutrition goes,
Right. I'm not thinking about the nutrition part
Yeah,
now
but
as
you're
to
just-
just,
yeah, why that it doesn't go rancid, and I don't know that. Like I said, that'd be something I'd like to find out.
yeah.
See if they're doing something different.
James, do you know about Heritage Acres, don't you? In Lancaster?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How is their wheat, how does theirs keep?
It's just, don't they keep it in the freezer?
No. I get a pallet of it in different sizes, and I have it for a month, and I don't.
Do they call it flour? they'd almost have to have a preservative in it in order to have
They're
it.
gonna have to.
Well,
keep it.
people can use that term flour. The government doesn't come after them unless they know about it, causes a problem. So,
But if they're USDA inspected and all that, I guess if if the inspectors don't know the rules and regulations, then they get
I
away
don't
with
know
it.
if they are. The one in Lancaster.
This is the flour you use,
You
Anna?
said you don't know if they are.
So,
They might not be. That's why they're getting away with it.
Maybe they spell it flour with a W.
What flour is that, Anna? And you sell it in your store?
yeah,
What's it called?
we're out of it right now, but, Heritage, we have all purpose and,
They have some spelt flour and
That's
different
right,
things
they
like
have
that, don't
einkorn.
they?
You see my.
Oh, the einkorn. So that's from them.
I buy
Okay,
mine.
nice.
That doesn't matter how it's spelled.
Yeah.
There's the oats. But
Okay.
people use all of
You gotta-
these
you
as a
gotta pay
breakfast
attention
cereal.
here.
What?
Make
I said I gotta pay attention here.
To make porridge.
Yeah, well, you cook
Details
each one
matter.
of them just same as you cook oats. And some people like the number 2s even, but
To
they
make porridge.
use all of them.
Yeah.
They make baby food out of number 2 makes baby food.
Now I noticed on the website, do you guys also sell a crushed wheat flour?
We did,
Okay.
but our new machine is more efficient, so we no longer have
What
to.
I need you guys to do is really talk and push on him to update his website.
When are you gonna update your website, man? Come on.
Are you his son by any chance or no? Okay.
Well, I was gonna do that today, but
I
I
didn't know
got
if you were
sidetracked.
related, so
No, you're gonna do it today, but you had to come here. Okay, got it.
Oh, yeah. The amount of things we have to do is crazy.
Oh yeah.
But, and the reason that I don't put that very high is because most of our customers don't use the website.
right.
So, but we do need to get that.
Except
Go on.
us. We're gonna use that website.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll be able to buy whenever Anna carries here.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't say for purchasing necessarily.
Right.
You still have to have an online presence so people that aren't right next to you and can't walk up to you have to be able to do something.
Now with your crushed one flour, do you need to use the recipes from the crushed cookbooks, or can it be used one-to-one in any other recipe from any other cookbook?
Most of the time, people use it as a one-to-one replacement. Every now and then you get people say they gotta use a little more, a little less,
Okay.
but it's pretty close.
Okay, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue then if I just used any recipe then that I thought looked good and. Oh, okay, interesting.
And then adjust it a
That's
little
good
bit
to know.
if it seems a
You
little
sure
off.
came out in time.
Yeah, that's good to know.
We are in the, well, I'm in the country.
Glad I'm not involved in that process. I'm just involved in getting rid of it.
You take care of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Make
this
sure it's
donut,
disposed of properly.
this donut is a problem. Ma'am, I'm gonna have to dispose of this. Yeah. Stand back. This is a professional's job.
Well, did you have any questions? You haven't asked anything.
I don't know. You know me. I always think of a question and I forget about it.
Was there anything you want to know?
Nothing. I know Joey's gonna like this. We'll have to send him the thing.
Yeah. Do you have the cookbooks here that you'd be willing to
I
sell
do
or
have
no?
some, yes.
Okay.
Back out to the truck again.
I only have 3. I only have 3 of them with me, I think. Okay.
Well, can you order through the website or no?
You can, but for the most part, it's more expensive and the shipping will eat you up.
That's the cheapest.
Okay. So what's the best way to buy it then if like
Through
say Anna
Anna.
doesn't have it though?
Through
I
Anna.
can get whatever you want. What are you looking at?
Oh well, he only has 3 cookbooks and she said she needed 3.
You may have mine for now. I'm really not using
flour.
it.
Joe
I'm
mine.
using bread flour, bread recipe. You can
Oh, I
have
thought
this
you
one
said you
too.
wanted 3 cookbooks.
No, flour.
Oh, never mind. Oh, I think there was some confusion then. I think
Well,
he
dear,
thought you were
you're
talking
not gonna be able to read
cookbooks,
3
too.
cookbooks at the same time.
Well, I thought she wanted one for each of them.
One to use, one to keep, one to go away.
Yeah, our goal is gonna be that she's got everything here
That would be nice.
consistently.
And
Yeah.
Anna, will you have all the crushed stuff like the flax and everything too?
And
So I
sadly,
I had the flax already.
Oh, you do?
2 of the Miller.
Oh, good.
These are from northern Indiana, the Amish in northern
Amish
Indiana,
lady.
right?
Okay.
They came up with
Compound,
these.
that's
And then those 3 are some that Chris.
Nice.
We have
Excellent.
a lady from Weston Price
I have one. Which one?
made
This is a
those other
different
ones.
one.
How much are these?
Healthy greens, cookbook.
Yeah.
Each.
How much you want to sell those for?
What are you going to charge me?
Yeah,
You gotta make some.
I
I
know that you charged me for the one I got.
But that's what I charge.
Now,
It was kind of-
you know too, when you go to buy these, or look at this, we also have a third cookbook coming out
Okay.
on the whole wheat. So we've got a whole wheat product where we don't sieve. So it is actually the only whole wheat product out on the market today that we know of. Because even what they call whole wheat today under the USDA, they have taken certain parts of it out.
Okay.
But with our wheat now, it's 100% whole wheat bear. And we've got
I should
another
have brought some
cookbook.
einkorn along
So
for
you
Then we're gonna
actually
be able to
sell, you
sell.
actually
buy the
sell
acorn berries
berries
and I
too?
grind in mine.
No,
We have. he
no,
did
but
some
it's the whole
einkorn
wheat.
for me.
So it's crushed whole wheat,
And I don't know what to
Okay.
do
Oh,
with
and
it,
it's just
because we
not
don't get
sieved at all.
used.
not
We-
sieved at all.
We like the
Yeah, I
recipes
use
we
it.
got. We
Interesting.
don't
And will
get
Anna be
used.
selling that too?
Yes.
I haven't.
She
Make
will
sure
have access
she
to
gets
it.
everything.
When you
And
come
then
up
Anna,
this
you'll
way,
get his
you don't
einkorn when they
Everything.
start producing
Especially the
that.
cookbook.
That's nice.
Yeah.
There is actually a couple. Penny Ann has a couple einkorn growers,
So,
and they'd be very happy to sell us grain. They said,
For what, the einkorn?
yeah.
I'm
What?
Now, do you guys have any, or does, Anna, do you
I
have the number
I should
ones
have whatever
here?
you want.
Here's the number
He
ones
brought
here.
me stuff along.
Okay, alright. So
Do you have
there's,
a pen and paper to write down what you want?
do you guys have a bag so I can see what the number ones look like? Because last time we were here, Anna only had the number twos.
Stuff that I have.
James, do you have a bag of number one so she can see?
Yes.
I'm sorry, poor guy.
Just drive the truck in here.
At least he's right there.
Yeah. And he doesn't have to walk all the way around to the. Yeah, that'd be rough.
It's so something of beer and that's what
Does this taste good when you make it as a breakfast cereal?
Yeah.
Like
It tastes like wheat. I
Will,
mean, it's got the, if you like wheat, yeah. But
will
it's,
little children eat it very willingly?
I would say so.
Okay, because our oldest is 5, so they're all 5 and under. So we have 5, 3, 2, and then 8 weeks. So
Yeah, usually like with that stuff there, if you put, I'll put a little bit of honey with it.
I get someone.
And it's got a decent flavor to it.
okay, well that's good to know. So you don't know if that would work very well for me to like put in my food processor to chop it up finer right before making porridge?
Yeah, I don't know how that would go.
Or the potato.
Biggest thing with that is, once again, you open up that cell, you're destroying. You know,
Right, that's true.
That's the biggest thing with putting it in a blender.
True. I like the. Like,
put little
do you
rocks
know what I
in the
mean by
bottom of
like the Quaker Oats microwave packets of porridge? I grew up with those, and so then when we got married and I made oatmeal using rolled oats, I'm like, I don't like if this is like eating horse feed. And I discovered that the quick oats makes the same consistency.
But yeah, the health of those quick oats aren't very good.
Yes, that's true. How does this taste if you cooked it into an oatmeal?
It's going to be a little more chewy.
Okay.
But once again, it's got the flavor's good.
So this would be more typical for the breakfast cereal than this, probably.
I mix the two usually,
Oh, okay.
and you know, one of the big things is like, you know, I stayed overnight up here, and this morning when I got up, I brought flax, a bag of flax. I brought a bag of sunflower and a bag we've got hemp hearts, and so
Oh, wow.
I
It
mix all
really
three of
does look
those
like white flour.
in the morning. But that way you get a buffet of
I love
nutrition.
it for bread.
That's amazing. I mean, it looks like flour. It looks that fine. That's
I just thought of
amazing.
And then I
It's
had
not-
this. Like these had
I just thought of a great marketing scheme for you.
a fourth as much as.
Because it's not
Of that?
white,
To
it's
increase
off
the
white,
nutrition.
Yeah,
off
that's the
our
brand.
father's
Nice.
food. So it's off white flour.
So the recipe is for the bread. Did it come out of one of the cookbooks?
I gotta hire this guy. That's all there is
Or is it
to
one
it.
that
This
you
one
made
did.
up?
This
No,
one,
the
no.
one you gave us a
No.
couple weeks ago.
That was just my bread recipe.
Oh, I wouldn't mind that recipe because that loaf was gone by the next day.
Yeah.
Did it even last the night
So
though?
did it-
I don't
I
remember.
think it lasted into the next
Yeah.
morning.
Okay.
And
Early
that
in the
was
morning.
it.
Minutes for noise.
Well, this is exciting.
Now, this stuff here too,
D-Day number 2s.
the wheat number one, we crushed some in 2018. We had a nutritional analysis done on it. Then last summer, about 4.5 years later, we took some of that same, because we set it on the shelf.
Yeah.
So we took that same stuff that we crushed in 2018, had it tested,
See, we use.
and it had the
when we
same
make our
nutritional
bread,
analysis we did 4.5 years before.
We do put that in.
Wow.
So,
Because
That's a
it
good
has a
deal.
little bit more fiber in it.
That's-
It just adds.
yeah.
So it
huge.
didn't degrade at all in 4 years.
You could have dog food sit on the shelf for the
That's
same amount of
amazing.
time, and yeah, it'd be really bad.
And is this your chicken feed?
Here, just so that we had.
yes.
Can I look at it?
Of course, dog food is a lot more.
Will Anna be selling this as well?
You want?
Will Anna be selling this as well?
Well, that, you'll have to talk with Anna and James
She's
about.
gonna be selling all of it.
Now, James,
this
is
is the
that our
chicken
feed, or is that
Yeah,
feed
she's
you've
gonna sell
made?
that.
That is feed that I mixed. That has soy in it.
This has
Oh yeah, he's
soy.
not gonna sell that, but Anna
Some
will.
of the one yours doesn't
Hopefully
have
she
soy
will.
in it, does it?
Right, we have it with soy without.
So we can make it without soy, but I just, for myself
Hopefully she
personally,
carries
I think the
everything.
soy adds a little extra energy that I think the chickens need.
I mean, technically, considering the ingredients, we humans could eat it too. You could cook that into a superfood
porridge.
breakfast porridge. Yeah, you really could. It has been. I mean, it's just food.
Yep. Yeah, a guy makes our chicken feed. We took some of that chicken feed, put it in water, and yeah, had a breakfast cereal with it. Put a
Was
little
it good?
Put a little bit of honey and some strawberries on it. Oh yeah.
And then having it with eggs is just the ultimate.
Michael,
And then
Michael,
chicken sausage.
pull your chickens up to the table. You can have your meal together.
There you go.
Little
throwing
red
at the
hen is
table.
eating her bread. The little red hen is eating her bread.
Oh dear. Oh dear. If you hire me, you have to hire her too.
Well, this is exciting. Does Anna have everything? Anna, do you have everything priced out that you're gonna sell these for?
We have it priced for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna make my own prices then.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how they compare with this, so that's what we're gonna do today.
The oats are $11.50.
Now so big guy.
We don't sell. Well, we have it in buckets, but I don't have any buckets with me. But the next size up is
When
a
I
20-pound
buy for the
bucket.
winter.
Well, that would then you would want a bucket of it.
Do you have the bucket?
No, I don't have any buckets with me.
How soon are you driving those out to Anna then?
You guys sell?
Coming back.
Do you ever sell the flour in big amounts?
In 5-gallon buckets.
Do you have oats with you? You do have a bucket of oats with you, don't you?
I don't know.
I think you do.
Place that with Nate. Nate put them on there. I didn't even. I
might
just made
have.
sure they read the right number.
You might have eaten that for breakfast this morning.
And the 5-gallon buckets, I imagine, would technically end up being a better deal if you purchased
Per
that.
pound, yeah. Yep. And whenever we
doesn't go bad.
store it in, you know, we gotta have it in. It's gotta be sealed.
Is that what?
It's gotta be sealed. That's why we got the Ziploc, and we've got a heat seal. And like with the buckets, they got that ring around them. We got a rubber seal up in there.
That black.
Will it keep in the bucket?
Yeah, it's got that seal, the rubber seal around the edge. So it's
Yep.
coming down.
We gotta keep bugs out and
So
moisture out.
if we bought 5-gallon buckets at a time, because we're a family of 6 currently, it should keep. Okay.
We
A
had
long time.
somebody that just told me they used their last bucket they bought 4 years ago. But,
So it lasts. They hardly eat oats then.
well, he got 100 of them.
You do have a bucket of oats with you.
James, was it you that was telling me about the flour that was on the shelf since 2018?
Yeah, that was.
Was it you
that
that
was
you
one of
had it
those.
tested and it was all the
Same
nutrients
nutrition.
were still there?
Yep, didn't lose anything.
And I don't have any. Or yeah, the bucket price is this price right here.
This is the bucket.
Yes,
There's a 30 pound.
which is the wheat number 1, and then the wheat number 2.
You have a bucket for the one?
We have some buckets of number 1 as well. Yes.
Pretty much.
But you'd have to keep this sealed too because yeah, the bugs would go crazy about it probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have people that have had
the prices.
Sure.
crushed wheat number 1 and flour on their
You probably
counter at
have.
the same time.
Oh, actually.
Never got any bugs in their flour.
My husband
I don't
will
want
say
to
that
crush
it's
wheat.
silly of me, and it is silly of me. I was going to ask me extra
Yeah,
copies
that's
of
true.
that, but my husband can take a picture if that's all right.
I just told them, I said, that tells you how smart bugs
Can you
are.
take a picture of this so we have the prices?
Huh?
Do you want to take
Well,
a picture
those
of this
aren't
so
the
we have the-
accurate prices. Those
Oh,
are
they aren't?
today's prices. She has to make up her
Today's.
own prices. What she
And this is also probably going to go on.
because I'm guessing they're going to be a little bit higher because she has to put delivery
Right.
charges on top of that, so they'll probably be a little bit higher
You're not
than
mixing
what
and
these
buying the
are.
flour itself.
But
Oh,
today we're just going by that because
So,
And we'll have a price sheet with
30 pounds for the number
30
one.
pounds.
that's right. And Anna would be able to get in the buckets though, like
Yes.
the big ones. If we, like, she might not carry them in stock, but if we said, I'd like you to order this, and she could get that
Yep.
in. Okay.
She'll have some of the buckets here.
It's gonna be in a bucket. So I'm just getting you that.
Yes.
Hold on, let me
Well,
We got to talk about those.
that's great. So what are the two
see.
different
The oats is
prices here?
different. It's $64, but that's a 20.
What are the two different prices besides each one?
No idea.
No, it's a different company.
Let me answer the bucket.
It's more than the other one.
Flour holds in the bucket.
30 pounds.
And
It's
which
20.
what number
It's a
is that?
5-gallon bucket, the number one.
Number one. And the last.
Not real sure.
I'm sure your children enjoy coming home to raid Dad's place for food.
5-6 years.
So you don't have to put nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. Just buy the
Just
bucket.
keep it in the
Wait.
sealed bucket.
Gives a whole new definition when you
Then
grandpa's.
just
Yeah.
keep the lids on tight again. Keep the bucket sealed.
$64,
You
I
have
guess, for
the
the.
cornmeal bucket, the one, the flour,
Or borrowing from
That's what he
dad.
said.
the oats. Okay.
I mean, that's.
So I'm just getting you the
I
wheat
have to check the
and
price of this.
Okay.
the oats.
Because I'm gonna wait till they're coming back
That's
to serve her and
amazing.
then tell it to bring me the bucket. That's price.
No. The bucket of the oats and the bucket of the one.
Those I'm just gonna buy them.
Do you want a bucket of oats
And the bucket of the
and
one.
a bucket
mean-
of the ones?
Ooh, and this stuff is also off brand.
Could you imagine, Joseph? If we had the space to put it, we could buy a 320-pound barrel of flour. That would last, and since it lasts, that would last. Like, my goodness.
I can find a spot for that.
So just to make sure.
Somehow.
But it's
the
like almost $1,000.
I'm not
Yes.
finding a spot for
Then
that.
it is the.
That would have to come out of income tax probably
64
every year.
for
Be
the
like,
oats.
we're investing in our year's worth of flour.
Or years, yeah.
Or
3 years.
3
worth of
years,
flour.
yeah.
How far did you have coming up here?
I don't eat.
About an hour?
I eat donuts
Me,
for
I'm
that many
50.
donuts.
I'm in McDonald's.
Well, I was
I'm
calculating that if
closer
I have to make 4 loaves of bread a week, that's about 16 pounds of flour, and then with
You're
any other
farther
baking,
on the other
I
side, yeah.
might safely want 30 pounds a
I'm trying
month.
to see where you would go.
So it would be
Point.
whatever
Is that
30
up by
times
the lake?
12 is would be a year's supply. So that would actually, yeah, just be about a year's supply of flour.
I forgot which Amish community I'm going to. It's
Interesting.
over the elbow.
Like towards Binghamton or Albany or I'm trying
On-
to
Binghamton is
Utica or
45 minutes from me.
where?
It's 45 minutes.
What is-
from me. Binghamton?
Binghamton. So you're down that way. Okay. It's just trying to figure
We're gonna
out
have
which
to move this file
direction.
off the phone. It's at 2 hours and 2 minutes so far.
So those
Give me a
buckets are down.
You might
in
want
his
to turn
truck,
it off.
So they
then.
are down there.
Why?
Can I see the price?
As long as the battery holds up.
I have another price sheet. Get another one.
I'm just gonna probably end up uploading it anyways.
And it's soaking in the thrill of future sales. Right? I said you're soaking in the thrill of future sales.
Oh, I don't know. I doubt that they're going to come to me for future sales.
1 hour 50? I don't know about that.
Joseph,
Here.
Yeah, you'll have us coming back, yeah.
Here.
Uh,
What she's really thinking of is like, I don't think I built that barn big enough for the new place.
yeah, right?
That's in the book.
So did you get a picture of, well, no, that's right, because it doesn't matter. Because she'll have to increase her prices a bit.
No, the over 25 pound in the bucket.
Whole wheat, 25 pounds, bucket. 25, how big is a bucket? 25 pounds.
It's a 5-gallon bucket.
Now, my children love oatmeal. And the thing that I guess I'm a little worried about is like, with this, if I were to cook it into oatmeal, how well would toddlers do with that texture-wise?
The lady out of Goshen, Indiana, what she will do is cook that for 15 minutes. She'll boil it.
Okay.
And she feeds all her grandkids.
And they eat it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it takes longer to cook then, obviously, than quick oats.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know. And do you have the flax, what that looks like?
I do have.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. That's what I'm here for.
Back you
He'll have walked
go.
at least 3 miles just to his truck today.
market. So
Yeah, right. If he's wearing a steps monitor, right?
Yeah,
Oh, he got his
Fitbit
steps
or
in
whatever,
today.
Great jog.
I take my question.
And I'm assuming that the crushed flax must be pretty high in nutrients, because I know that they say flax is really good for fiber and stuff like that. So the crushed flax would be even better.
Yeah, oh yes. Yep, and your omega-3s. I mean, you got all your omega-3s in that flax.
Now, what do people really do with the crushed sunflower? Because I mean, I know we eat the seeds, as a snack or in like what do you call it?
Sunflower seeds?
The stuff that you put on you like to put granola, like granola and trail mixes. But what would you use with the crushed sunflower?
All of those, plus you could put it in anything you're baking with.
Just to increase the nutrition.
Yep, just to increase, once again, that buffet of nutrition. The more different types of grains you can eat, the better off your nutrition is.
Is sunflower considered like a superfood?
Yes.
Okay, it is. Okay.
And the biggest thing that sunflower gives you is that it has a taproot that will go down up to 6 feet.
A sunflower.
A sunflower. And every 6, and that's how it holds that head up top, and it goes side to side, because it's got that taproot. But and as your soil comes down every 6 inches below the top of your soil, you have a different a different community of microorganisms. And like most of your grains, most of your vegetables will sit in the top 6 inches or maybe even top foot. That's how further down they go. But if you get a taproot down 6 feet, now you're getting into 12 different of these communities of microorganisms. They all give you different nutrition.
Right.
So sunflower will give you that variety.
Yeah.
So that's what the flax looks like. Okay.
And don't let it looks like a whole seed.
Yeah, it does.
But
Yeah.
don't let that confuse you, because they are
Buy in bulk.
Fractured.
they're fractured so that your digestive juices still get in there.
Yeah.
And
Kind of like crimped oats.
So you wouldn't.
it's not like if you eat a whole piece of flax, it passes right through you.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So you wouldn't want to then mill it into like a powder before using it at home.
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
Then you'll
My mom
kill
did
the germ.
ask me this week. She said, "How about she buys flax meal, and then she makes flax balls of some kind that she likes to snack on?" She said, "How would this work for that?" I said, "I have no idea how that would work."
The sunflower you could give to the
Yes.
because you don't. I'm gonna make my own little thing. So you have what's the size of the bag for sunflower?
They're in 1 pound
I'm taking
bags.
pictures too.
Small.
Yeah.
Now, if you want
Here.
sunflower, you're talking about like chicken feed, then you can also just get crushed sunflower. And what we do is we keep the whole kernel and everything in. And that's
You
all.
don't have that.
Next.
No, you're right. I don't.
I need to go buy chicken food today. You don't have it. So I have to
Well,
put it together.
take this along home so your chickens don't go hungry. I can get some more.
He's like, I'll eat something else on the way home.
Yeah, they eat food.
And then this is a number 3.
Yeah. So this way we don't just have the video.
Yeah, because what they're farmers, but that's not enough of.
And I'll try to get the.
Okay, so you're north of Bihn.
Chicken feed. But that's chicken feed. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's okay. If it stands up, I'll take a picture of it.
Right there is a.
It's okay. I'm just gonna look at this.
So I'm right.
Okay. Let's see, we are
Anything else?
there,
Any questions?
close to 4 now.
You guys are far still.
Yeah, we're still way over here.
Yeah, that's over.
She was
Yeah.
one that had wondered about.
That's Cortland. It's oops.
Yeah, we're way over
She
here.
still needs to.
Right here.
She caught the omega-3
We're
and,
still far.
she takes omega-3. Is that not necessary then?
More now.
This is on-
We're about 15 minutes outside of Plano, or maybe even a little bit more, probably about 20 minutes. You know where Alfred is? Alfred's a college town. That's where we are. Is in Alfred.
So I talked to a guy.
And where's
at
the?
water jump.
Is there like a contact information thing,
Exactly.
like
Some
with
flavor.
website, phone number?
It's
I see
on
a
the
phone over here. but-
It's on the
Yeah,
bag.
you guys are 2 hours and 30 something.
Okay.
Healthygraincrushing.com.
No, the difference.
So I will read this off to
Two hours,
the camera
35
for
minutes.
the people that see the video,
That's far.
and we'll probably end it there.
So we're right there. That's 2 hours and 30 something minutes.
From your place.
Pretty much.
The natural stuff you can take out in the field right away.
Oh.
The synthetic stuff you can not.
How far away from here do you guys?
But yeah,
I'm like an hour, well, when he looked like an hour 40.
medications.
So you want a
You
bucket
drove
of
the distance to come here today.
So for more information on this stuff, you can go to
Also, the
healthygraincrushing.com.
We can't knife this. We can't break down when I cook the capsules. A lot of those capsules.
This is Our Father's Food.
So
Our Father's Foods, grown in the USA.
and you can't. The EPA won't let you put it on the field.
And I believe this
They
is
tell us use it for.
James, right?
yes.
This is one of the places that's available, or is that?
So
We're the
so as far as
we distribute it in New York State.
we've got a lot of people. That
Okay, so that's the distributing in New York
And then
State.
she's gonna have it available here.
So this is you, and then this will be sold here. Okay,
Hotel.
cool. This is James.
One of the first things I did.
and y'all don't have, just here.
And you can see
here,
the
nowhere
contact
closer.
information for that.
The closest,
I'll take about 2
not that I know. I guess you're just gonna have to start selling it.
I gotta sell
I
it. I can be a
a.
seller.
Where do I buy from you?
Yeah, I don't mind. It gives me something else to
You
do.
just have to buy $300 worth at a time.
Another place of business,
That's not bad.
Farmhouse Blessings in Ohio.
I could,
There's a phone number, organically raised chickens, mixed feed,
$300.
crushed grains for
I get
baking.
at a lower price, right? If I'm buying it like that.
And that will also be distributed here in Starkville, New York at the health shop.
Because there's no one over there.
Give you the right protein, amino acids. So hemp and quinoa are the two.
$300
grains
or the
that
wholesale
right
price.
9
Here's your
amino
wholesale
acids.
price.
That is
30
the
pounds.
closest.
That's the
meat
wholesale price.
that you can buy.
This is the price you're giving
So
out.
Okay.
it'll,
Oh, good.
There is a delivery charge on top of that.
need to grow.
If I deliver
How much
it, there
is
is
the
some,
how much is the charge?
Sometimes I have.
probably right around $30.
Oh, that's
There's the cookbook, and there is a QR code there. If you feel like scanning the video,
Then I'll add it to my business
All the
and sell it when I go to the event.
So what kind of business do you have?
I make natural products. I do tonic.
Well, yeah, you need to do that
extracts.
then.
I do deodorant, natural deodorant, no aluminum. I do body butters.
You need you need pet food, chicken
Right,
feed.
that's exactly more to add to my business.
so yeah, it should be good.
What's your business called?
SE Natural Bomb.
So
SE Natural
what we
Bomb.
do,
Yeah.
so what I try to do is,
Okay,
right now I've got 3 or 4.
Are you online?
And then I make sure
I am, but they need to update the
and I get all that other stuff,
website.
so I'm getting
Yeah.
different grains.
So, and we'll try to provide any links that we can along with this video.
Never heard of it actually.
It's a
Hopefully Rumble, possibly a shorter version on YouTube.
That's nice. And then you're
And yeah, again, this is Anna King's Health Shop where this presentation was given.
we're in the country too.
It's in Starkville, New York, on
Oh yes, actually.
Elwood Road, just up at the top of the hill. Have a good day.